Welcome to Sarder TV. I'm Vaishali Jain. We're excited to have Cara Castronuova join us today. Cara is a fitness professional featured as a trainer on season 11 of the show The Biggest Loser on NBC. She's also a professional boxing champion, a commentator, and an entrepreneur, and she's here to tell us more. Cara, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
So you have your degree in communications from Hofstra University. Tell us how you ended up pursuing a career in health and fitness.
I was a communications major. I've always liked communications and media. And when I was in college, I started boxing, which is a very random thing to do in college because everybody was really busy. I was in a sorority. I was in like a bunch of clubs and stuff, but I was just actually, for whatever the reason, wanting to box at that time in my life. So I became really successful with it, and after college I just continued with it, and that was kind of, my mom at the time was very shocked that I would pursue boxing and not like, she always wanted me to play the violin or something like that. But I just was basically following my heart. It's just something I felt I really wanted to do at the time. I didn't know where it was going to lead me. I didn't know if I would make money doing it. I didn't know if I would get beat up and like my face would be destroyed. I didn't know, and everyone was like, well, if you want to do communications, don't you care about your face or I'm more worried about my brain, but people were like, your face. And I fell into health and fitness because of boxing, because obviously boxing, you have to be really fit, you have to really watch your health. So I became obsessed with my health, obsessed with not losing weight, but making weight, which is different. When you're boxing or playing a competitive combat sport, you have to be in a certain weight class. So I was always trying to make a weight class, and I always had to lose weight in the most healthy way possible, because if I lost it in a way that was not healthy, then I would more than likely be weak for a fight. So I really became an expert just by getting to know my own body and myself, and that's how I really started in fitness and wellness, and it just grew from there. As I started boxing, I started gaining more exposure and notoriety. I started doing it actually fell back. I actually started doing sportscasting for a while, so communications came in, was very helpful with that. And boxing actually and fitness opened doors that led back to media and communications. So it kind of all did a circle. I was a communications major. I kind of went off the track and started boxing and getting into health and fitness, got my personal trainer certification, studying, diet and exercise. And because of that, it brought me back to communications, because then I started to get TV exposure. Right. And, started to be viewed as an expert on certain topics. So, yeah, so it actually worked out, and that came in really useful.
Now, you mentioned that your father passed away when you were a teenager and that he struggled with obesity. Tell us about some of the things that you saw him struggle with throughout.
So I saw my dad struggling with obesity because, when I was younger, my dad was not really that overweight. And as the years passed, I only knew him for 14 years, but when I was 10, 11, 12, I started to watch him gain weight. And it was actually very, very sad because he was very active. When I was younger, I'd say, he taught me how to box when I was 6, and he was in the Marines, so he was doing boot camp drills with me and my brothers. He was making us exercise all the time. Before kids were exercising, it wasn't stylish to exercise. Now it is, if you're a kid, but back then it was unheard of. People still remember in my neighborhood, oh, you were the kids that were running up and down the block, doing all these crazy drills. So my dad had us doing that when we were young, and he would do them with us, and he was very fast. I remember racing him. And then as the years progressed and, I started becoming a preteen, 11, 12, 13, he started gaining a lot of weight, and that was making him lethargic. It was making him sleep a lot. It was probably depressing him because he wasn't able to do the things that he was able to do before. He used to fight, and he used to be very active, and he was an athlete. And now as he's gaining weight, and a lot of it had to do with simply just food choices, I think, and some depression, but mostly food choices, being Italian and having certain comfort foods and soul foods that you turn to, and always turning back to those foods. And, your metabolism, I know, because I'm not saying, whatever, I'm not 40 yet, but as you get older, your metabolism declines, and I think that was something that happened to my dad, and he got overweight, and it was sad because he couldn't be active anymore. So he slept a lot more too. It's when you're overweight, you sleep a lot.
You were young, but were there things that your family would try to do to get him to change his habits?
Well, this is going back to 1994, so back then, I remember my dad bought the Richard Simmons workout videos, but he wouldn't actually do them. He'd just sit there and watch them. When we cleaned the house, we put them on because it was called Sweating to the Oldies. I don't know if you've ever seen these videos. But I guess Richard Simmons was the guy at the time, and my dad did purchase those videos, but he never did them. I never saw him once do them. I don't think people were exercising as much at the time. You know, people went to the gym, but it was more building muscle with weights. So nobody really did anything to help him. He was a stubborn person. I don't think he would have listened anyway. If I could go back in time, I would try to help him. I would try to get through to him in some way, shape, or form. But it would be hard because, you know, it's the truth with my dad and with anybody. If they are stubborn and they don't want to hear it, they're just not going to. It doesn't matter who tells them.
Now, you also compete in boxing championships. So tell us how that type of competing helps you overcome that adversity.
I started boxing, competing when I was actually in college, which is, you know, most people think you start when you're a teenager or something like that. I actually wrestled when I was a teenager, but so that got me kind of in the mental zone I needed to be in to compete as an individual rather than on a team. But boxing, it's a very scary sport. I was very scared to fight before I did, and it's you know, it's not easy. And you never really believe you're going to do it until you're getting your hands wrapped before the fight. You could be training for like months, you know, and it's kind of this thing in your head like almost someone else is doing it, not me, but you're training for it, at least at first. And it just prepares you, I think, for a lot of things in life. I think more than anything, it kind of reveals your personality to you in this way that you wouldn't really understand if you didn't challenge yourself. I feel like, you know, you can't really get to know yourself unless something happens that really challenges you. So a lot of people, you know, don't have something that's really challenging happen to them. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. So taking up a sport like boxing, where it's actually, I'm not going to say the most dangerous thing, but it hurts a lot to get beat up. And it's extremely mentally taxing to train for. It's just, you have to really be focused 100% and you have to sacrifice so much. So it shows you what you're capable of in a lot of ways. So, you know, later on in life, you think back to, well, you had this like attitude as a kid where you could do anything, you kept trying no matter how many times you failed. It's like, you remember that, you know, sometimes you get down, especially, you know, the world's a frustrating place, then you always think back to, I do. I'll be like, okay, like, that was something that I did that I didn't even think I could do, you know, until I did it. So, well, I knew I could do it, but it was real very deep down. So I think that boxing or competing in a sport like boxing really prepares you for life because it will show you what you're capable of. And people are more capable, so much more than they realize.
And so you think that really has helped you with some of the success that you've
It helps
achieved?
me so much, and with just even little things, you know, just little things. And it's like, you know, I always want, like whenever I'm having a hard time in life, I'm like, I want to just, let me just box again so I can remember, you know, but it's harder as you get older. Yeah. But it's not, I mean, that's not an excuse or anything, but I'm saying it's like you don't remember how great, like, you could actually be if you put your mind to it, unless you actually put your mind to it, you know? So sometimes it's like, I'll resort back to wanting to fight again. And I have gone back and done that, you know, as I've gotten older, like just to remember how it felt, you know. It's a very inspiring feel. Even when you lose, I think it is too. I mean, at the time it isn't, but I think looking back to the times that you lost, it's like just as revealing and rewarding as when you won, just in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Because you've learned a lot from it, right?
No, you learn so much from losses. And at the time, nobody will understand. Like, it's just very heartbreaking when you lose, especially if you really trained or if something unfair happened. Because, you know, like boxing and a lot of sports, there's like robberies, they call them, where you really won the fight and the judges, for whatever reason, gave it to the other person. And that is like the worst feeling. And you can't fathom in your head why this would happen. Or something will happen, like you'll make this mistake and you're like, how could I have done that? And it's like you just don't understand why. And I've stayed up actually like 3 nights in a row without sleeping. Like your adrenaline's so high and you're so like distraught. I just stayed up straight through 3 nights because I was so distraught when I lost this one fight. And then after that, I never made that mistake again, ever. And I try to like remember that, like, you can't bring emotion into something that, into professional life or your professional life or into anything that you want to excel at. When you start bringing emotion into it, you'll just become so cloudy, and it's just not a good thing.
Now you mentioned that boxing is scary, right? It's something that you know you're going to go in and you might get hurt. How did you overcome the fear of it being scary to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to do this anyway?
You never really overcome the fear. I think sometimes it's what is the best part about it, because they say that fear, you could use it as a motivator, and it's very true. Obviously, you don't want to be afraid, and you try to figure out every which way how not to be afraid. And by doing that, it means you're over preparing. You're running every day. You're like, okay, you're afraid. You're like, what if I run out of gas, or what if I expire in the middle of the fight? I have to go running right now, or what if I don't make weight? I have to get on my diet right now. So all that fear, what if she's training right now and I'm not? Let me get to the gym now. So it just pushes you and pushes you and pushes you. And I train people now, and it's like, I hate when people say, a lot of people say it out of a defense mechanism. Oh, I'm not scared. But if you're not scared, or at least nervous, then you really have something to worry about, because it means that you're not preparing in the proper manner. So fear is a good thing, I think, especially with boxing. Actually, probably with anything, because it can push you if you use it the right way.
What kind of advice, just everything that you've gone through, what kind of advice do you give people to help them overcome tough situations that they might be facing?
When I give someone advice, I try to think what I would give advice if I had a daughter. What would I say to her? So it's the most genuine advice I could give. And I mean, if I'd say that every tough situation does come to an end, and that things do get better. People don't believe it at the time, but you have to be proactive, I think, in getting to the point that you want to be at. You have to take steps every day. So recently my good friend's mother passed away, and she, really turned to me because she knew both my parents had passed away. I think I was giving her advice that I wish somebody had given me. It's like that I learned through the years, which was really that she should talk to people more than anything, and not keep things, you have to let things out, and that she should, it's just hard. It just depends on the situation. But I think more or less when I try to give someone advice, I try to think what I would say to my daughter, or if I could go back in time and say to myself. And I really, really do try to give people good advice. It depends on that person and the situation. There's a girl I'm training that's boxing. She's fighting in the Golden Gloves soon. And I try to give her the best advice I can. And I try to think, okay, what would I have wanted for somebody to tell me when I was this age? She's 19. I sort of lived through her. It's kind of scary. But she's so good. And I just try to give her advice that I wish somebody would have given me. I mean, it's a lot when it comes to boxing to understand, but...
Now, you were a trainer on The Biggest Loser, season 11 of The Biggest Loser. Tell us what that experience was like.
Being on The Biggest Loser was a really great experience. I like to study people and human nature, stuff like that, and that's probably why I'm so attracted to boxing, and I was, because you get to study human nature through learning about yourself. You observe patterns in people when they're put under certain situations, like people that you fight, people you train with, your trainers. It's just like this cast of characters that are at their most raw. So it reveals a lot about human nature. Going into The Biggest Loser was sort of like an extension from that, because you're seeing these people that are coming to the show. The guys are 500 pounds, women are some 350 pounds. It's a lot of weight. And I basically went onto the show and was told, okay, now turn them into half of what they are right now. And these people are very broken people. Most of them are. And it takes a lot of tribulations in life to be able to become 500 pounds, to let yourself become 500 pounds. So you're dealing with people that have probably hit rock bottom numerous times. And you're responsible for their health in many ways. And they really depend on you. It's not fake. It's that part is real. At least with me, it was I was responsible for them, just me. Doctor helped a little bit, but not really. No nutritionist, nothing. It was there was one for the TV element of the show, but really that was just for TV. So they were depending on me 100%. So it's just, you learn about people. You see that, okay, people are born a certain way. I think certain people would try and certain people wouldn't, and I think that's what the show wanted. But you see that, you're okay, some people will want to learn from you and they're going to seek out information. These are the people you should focus on. And then there's the people that they just don't care. And that they're the people, of course, TV loves, because everybody loves to watch like somebody, fail and hopefully be brought back up again. But another interesting thing I learned about people is that, it sounds like a weird sort of observation, but these people lost weight within a 6 to 8 month time frame. So we were there every day with them, and say for example, somebody was 500 pounds, and then 6 months later, I'm viewing them at 250 pounds. I'm seeing it happen slowly, so it's sort of less shocking to me as it was to the audience. And the whole time, from 500 pounds to 250, they were the same exact person. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like your core and your essence is the same. It's like you're in a different body. So it's like, it just makes you think about, human nature and the way you view people. It's like, okay, this person was the same exact person as they are now, but why now do people treat them better or people treat them differently? It's actually literally the same person. You watch them for 6 months. People don't change that much in 6 months. They could have something could be revealed to them about themselves, but their essence stays the same. Their personality, if they're a nice person, they stay nice. If they usually don't get nice. So it's interesting when I see overweight people now, really overweight, because I never worked with anyone that heavy. Generally, someone that heavy doesn't come to the gym in real life. So I'm always like, wow, I just think of just how interesting it is that it's just people, they're how I would be treated, say, if I was overweight, and I'd be the same person. It's interesting. Yeah.
You're also the founder and owner of a couple of companies, including Women Warrior Boot Camps, a couple of sleepaway camps. Tell us about those businesses.
What led me into starting kids' summer camps is that I went to a camp when I was younger. I was 15 and I went to a summer camp, and it very much changed my life, I feel. So and I love kids a lot. So, and I like training kids more than adults at this point in my life, because they have more room for change. Obviously, they're younger. A lot of times with an adult, I'm not saying an adult can't change or learn good habits, because they can, but if you're a certain way for many decades, it's very hard to break. And a kid, it's like they don't have those patterns and those bad habits yet embedded in them. So it's really refreshing to be able to sort of guide them the right way. And I just instinctively knew this, I think, when I went about starting these camps, and it always just fascinates me, when the first day of camps, and I'm like, oh my God, there's so many kids, and I'm like, I can't believe all these kids are here because of me, and that I'm going to be able to help them. And it's one of the best feelings, I think, and most rewarding is actually the time spent in these camps. I'll spend a lot of time there, sleepaway. I did a sleepaway camp where I was there the whole summer, and I just lived. I actually locked my keys in my car by accident, and I didn't even care. I took a cab when I had to go to the store. I locked it in for the whole summer. I just stayed on the campgrounds. It was so actually nice. And then I found them. It was a sign the day before I left. So, that's how involved and, enthralled I was by being there and helping the kids, and it's just, yeah.
What's the focus? What's the focus of your camp?
The camp that I do for kids is, it's called Camp Kid Warrior, because I don't want to call it a weight loss camp, or kids will be insecure by that. So it's more of an empowerment camp. And a lot of the kids that come are not necessarily overweight, but they could be overweight one day because they have bad eating habits. I know a lot of people that I went to school with that was really thin as kids, and now they're not. So it's just your metabolism when you're young, it changes. So I focused on just any kid that wants to learn about health and fitness. And there was a lot of overweight kids before as well. And we focus on 3 things, which is, physical strength, like training. Then we'll do education stuff like nutrition and stuff that you could actually talk about tangibly. And then sort of empowerment, like spiritual development, empowerment, anti-bullying, things of that nature. So it's kind of a multi-dimensional approach, and fun. Really, if a kid has a bad time at exercise camp when they're a kid, they are never going to exercise when they grow up, because your patterns are just so embedded in you when you're a kid. If you have a bad experience as a kid, you remember it forever. So God forbid a kid has a bad experience at exercise camp where they were tortured. They're not tortured. But if I did push them too hard or make things really just boring for them, they're never going to exercise, and that defeats the whole purpose. So I'd rather them have a fun time doing a little exercise than a horrible time doing a lot, just because when you're a kid, it's very important to have a certain affiliations, I think. in your head. Like, you know, when I was a kid, it was a struggle because back then, like, it was very cool to eat McDonald's and Happy Meals and sugary cereal that had toys in them. So in my mind, I had this affiliation, like, oh my God, toys, junk food. They were like the one and the same. And it was hard for me to break out of that habit. So I said, well, if like these kids come and I could, like, let's get the little toys and the stickers, but like pair them with healthy food or with exercise, then maybe they'll have the same affiliation when they're older, you know, and it works actually. So I've offered kids, in like a study I did where, you know, I had some Happy Meals and those microwave dinners that kids like, and I took away the toy and I put it with like the healthy meal, and I was like, which one do you want? And of course they picked the healthy meal. It's just the affiliation, like I said. So every time a kid eats something healthy or does something good, I'm like, here's a sticker, here's a, you know, a prize, whatever. Just that's just my way of making them think back in time. Like now they're my age, say, many years later, and they say, oh wow, like broccoli, and they don't realize it, but they have this affiliation with like this colorful sticker.
Yeah, you want to just reinforce that behavior.
I feel like it's really the only way to do it with kids, at least. So, and it's the most impact. It has the most impact. Like any adult now that is overweight, if they could go back and do that, I'm sure they probably wouldn't be overweight. A lot of those adults, like, you know, probably grew up eating junk food and probably grew up thinking exercise was torture. So if they could go back and, as a kid, and experience this magical summer where they're in the forest with their friends and, you know, campfires, like, you know, boats, everything, they would like that, because then it changes your mind. It actually changes your whole mindset about exercise.
And what's Women Warrior Boot Camps about?
So Women Warrior Boot Camps is a women's empowerment camp that I do, and usually a mix of women from all walks of life that really bond during the classes. When I do a boot camp, I want, you know, I try to do many days in the week, so everybody kind of feels a sense of a team almost, where they actually get to know each other, which I feel is the most important thing, because I know that, again, going back to when I was boxing or wrestling or doing any sports, being on the team, even though it's an individual endeavor in the end, makes you come back. Like knowing my friends were there, knowing that they not are judging me, but they're holding me accountable, and watching them do good makes me want to do better. So I always took that mentality into training people in boot camps, because I feel like if you could find a way to bind them together, then they're always going to come back. You know, that's like sort of something I learned maybe from being in a sorority, I don't know, or also from being on an all-women's boxing team where it was like 10 women. And we always came back for each other, you know, more than anything, because we knew that the other one was there, and we depended on each other to help each other. So I always really make sure that the women get to know each other. Like every day I'll pair them with someone new, like on purpose, someone they would never talk to, and I'll make them as workout partners for that day, or jog together that day. So everybody starts to really get to know each other. We play get to know each other games, like, and they really love it. And I don't like to mix women with men when working out, or girls with boys. And it's not like for any other reason besides I've noticed that it's a distraction. Like a 13-year-old girl is going to not work out hard when a boy is around, and a 45-year-old woman or 50-year-old woman, if there's a guy around, she's not going to act silly and dance around like crazy. Like, you know, the women in my class, it's like we'll do Zumba and really fun dance classes like jump rope, where they'll feel like a kid again, and they really let loose. And I think having like a male energy there would probably throw that off. And I think that was, the best feedback I've gotten was that they feel like a kid again, and they like really tapped into feeling like a little girl, and like being able to just let loose and be free with like motion and exercise. And I don't think that would be possible if there were guys around, you know, where I've trained guys too, and it's like I said, it's better to keep them separate. So
what are some lessons that you've learned from being an entrepreneur?
It's just hard. Being an entrepreneur is very hard. And you have to be, you know, the most obvious thing is you have to be really self-motivating and a self-starter, which I have no choice but to be, because I don't like working for other people. I really don't. It's very difficult for me. I recognize my skill set and what it is and what it isn't, and I like to make my own rules. So in order to do that, more than likely, I realized I would have to start my own business or be an entrepreneur and do my own thing. And it's so scary. It starts to become a part of you, where actually what starts to become scary is doing something for somebody else. Like that's more scary. I get claustrophobic. But that doesn't take away the fact that there's been certain times in your life where you're like, oh my God, Like, what if like I fail, or what if this doesn't work, or I can't pay the bills, or, God, what am I going to do? And it's very scary. You have to just, I think, really have a lot of faith in yourself, and that's hard. That's really difficult. There's many ways that you could try to, have the exercises that you could do, but I think that it's difficult. It's really hard. So it made me realize that obviously I have a lot of faith in myself, I guess, or else I would be not doing what I do. And you just learn that you're going to go up and down and up and down. And I guess you could take that into relationships too. It's like there's sometimes when you fall flat on your face and you're just like, oh my God. And then something great will happen and you don't see that coming either. So it's just a chain of up and down, and a lot of times right in the middle, but you have to be prepared to fall. You just have to, I think that's the most important thing. And it's hard to accept the fact that maybe you might, you just have to accept the worst case scenario. And once you accept it and you face it, then you're like, whatever. Okay, I'll be homeless, fine. And then you're like, I can handle that. And once you realize you can, I think that takes away a lot of the fear, and then you can move on forward. I think that if you're so worried about the outcome of failure, then you're not going to take risks, and I think that would be a mistake.
Can you talk about what some of your biggest wins have been as an entrepreneur, as well as some of your biggest failures?
I've had a lot of big wins. I could just say, starting from boxing, big wins I've had. I've won national tournaments, the Golden Gloves. Was ranked in the nation. So these are things that were sort of surreal at the time. I was like, oh my God, I'd see my name, and I'm like, no way. It was kind of very surreal, and it was very empowering, and you try not to let it define you. You're not just a boxing champ, but it's hard. It's like, wow, you can't believe it. I think that losing also keeps you level. It keeps you humble, which is the most important thing. So mixed in with all those wins were certain losses, ones that bother me some more than others for different reasons, and I think that is really important. Or I could have lost, you could lose your way if you're going around beating everybody up. That's really not the best thing, I guess, and getting certain TV jobs were very big wins. Basically, that means you're not pretty, no, you know what I mean? It's just you have to just let it go over your head. You have to be really thick-skinned and just let it go, or else you'll just be miserable. So I've let a lot of I'd assume a lot of people would find insulting, really go. Your accent is horrible. You sound not smart because you have a New York accent, or stuff like that. Or you're too overweight. I've heard that before too. It's crazy because a lot of women on TV, they're so skinny. The TV does put on 10 pounds, and it's crazy. So to be told I was overweight is, I had to lose before I went on The Biggest Loser, I was told to lose 15 pounds, which was hard because I didn't really have weight to lose, But and I was so small. Everyone was like, "Oh my God," in real life, but on TV you don't look that small, and it's hard to hear feedback like that, where people insult your looks or something. But I guess as you grow older, it becomes less important, and.
Anything more specific around
with
some of the businesses?
I feel one of my best successes was doing the camps in the summer for the kids. And it's just at the end of the summer, it's a very personally rewarding feeling to see all these kids having fun. It's always hard the first week. The kids miss home, they're miserable. Then all of a sudden everything just falls into place and they're best friends and they love it. And it's just so rewarding watching them laughing and having fun and having a good time, and knowing that, that you're hopefully having a powerful, positive impact in their life. So seeing that succeed is really personally rewarding, because it's just something that's really personal, it's a personal thing. And getting letters from the kids later on, I've gotten really nice letters from kids. It's just I should frame them and put them up. Some of them are really nice. So those have been successes that I feel I've had, running I run a nonprofit as well, and raising money. It's hard, again, to raise money, but I set a goal every year and try to follow it through, and I try to set it really high. And I've raised money to send kids to other camps besides my own. They're costly. That's why I started a camp, because I know how costly the other ones were, and I'm like, wow, for the money we're raising for 2-3 kids, I could have 40 kids literally at this camp. That's been an unexpected success that I've had, something I didn't really plan. And running a camp, it's a lot. It's like there's so many different dimensions to it. And doing it, I do a lot of stuff on my own. So doing it on my own, it's just like, wow, like you can't, when you see it before your eyes, it's a cool feeling because it's tangible. I think that other things you do in your career and that I do in my career, it's not as tangible as seeing like a bunch of kids having fun. So that's like a very tangible thing. Other things, it's kind of slow and over time. That itself is I think that it's important to do stuff like that because then it's kind of a motivator to be able to see something tangible. So I look forward to doing the summer camps.
Yeah, because you're doing finance, you're doing HR,
right,
you're doing marketing.
It's just crazy. Marketing, like I have to do, like marketing is the way, nowadays I guess is the way that it is the way that you get money from donors. They want to see video, they want to see something cool on YouTube, you know, a cool, something on social media that I mentioned, you know, so it's important to like keep in mind that times have changed and the computer is important. So hiring a videographer, you know, I taught the kids how to run cameras because I was like, I'm sick of paying all the, you know, I implemented media. I made it a media one of the classes because I'm like, wow, I could have all the kids interview themselves and write like about the kid, and then I could use this for our social media and stuff like that. And the kids loved it. Like I had assigned camp reporters and taught kids how to like do each other's hair and makeup. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing it. And that was to just, you know, obviously have stuff for social media and for the website, which is important when it comes to donations. A few years ago, I trained a guy, a boxer, a heavyweight, and I felt so confident that he was going to win. And I mean, I put a lot of work into this guy. He was actually trained by an old trainer of mine that passed away. So I was like, oh, as a dedication to my old trainer, let me train his fighter before his fight. So I took over, and I really, really like put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into training this guy. And you know, his fight came around, and I was very focused, and he was too, but he didn't win. For a few different reasons. One, I thought he won, and again, he got, like, I thought that they gave the decision to the other guy because the other guy was like, he just knew how to play the game for the judges, sort of. So you just realize that not everything is in your control. You know, really, we did as best as we could, and you know, when it came down to it, it wasn't in my control anymore, and that was like really hard to deal with, you know. I was upset at the time, but I'm like, wow, all right, I did everything I could. It was beyond my control, but I put so many hours in, so I was very disappointed at the time, but looking back, I realized that it was a learning experience, you know? Like when you put everything into something, you try as hard as you can, like sometimes you just can't, you know, the outcome is what it is, you know? So you just have to let it go.
What kind of lessons did you learn from that you were then able to take away when you were training other people?
Boxing specific, there's a certain way that you have to like win over the judges, which the other guy knew how to do. He wasn't actually hitting him with significant punches at all. He was hitting him with like little taps, but to the judges, like who were not that good, they thought it was something more, you know. So I realized that you have to kind of, while obviously being really good at what you do is important, you also have to kind of cater to your audience, which stinks. You know, you have to like, or society. I mean, I don't like even saying that, but sometimes, you know, you have to do what people, not what people are looking for, but it's a mix of both. You have to understand what you're being judged on, you know, and adjust accordingly. You know, so now I'm more aware when I train people, okay, this is what the judges look for. And more than likely, this specific judge I know is going to not understand certain things, so you actually don't really have to just like, don't hit him that hard, like, because you'll save energy that way. So it just to sort of cater to the situation, and also he did get a little bit wrapped up in emotion, I think. So to keep the fighter unemotional, like before, like I should have been more on top of him. If anything, I think he was texting with his girlfriend or something, and that was it's just, you know, I should have been more on top of him before. The mental preparation going in is just as important as the training. We did all the training beforehand. I was like nervous, so I should have probably been more on top of him mentally and had him secluded, not talking to his friends. So that's the most important thing when you go into any type of, you know, hard thing that you prepared for, is not to go in emotional and to be really, really, really in the zone, you know.
In the business world, it's customers first, for
Right.
example, right? Like you were talking about the judges and
Right.
everything. So
Yeah.
a products company
Right.
could, they think they have a great product,
Right.
but the customer, that's not what the customer wants, right?
And
So
it
you
is a
have
great,
to-
it probably is a great product,
Right.
but maybe the customer just thinks something else is, and they might be wrong.
Yeah.
They probably are, but that doesn't matter.
or
'cause
they
they're the
didn't
ones
market it the
paying.
same way or the right
Right.
way, So
Right.
it's
So yeah, you have to be really
a lot
aware
of
of
parallels.
what people are looking for, I guess.
Yeah. What would you say are your greatest strengths and your greatest weaknesses as an entrepreneur?
One of the hardest things as an entrepreneur to recognize is your weaknesses, I think. A lot of times you don't give yourself enough credit for your strengths. You're always like, and you don't want to admit you have weaknesses. So I try to do everything, and I realize that I can't. There are weaknesses I have. One of them, to be really honest with myself, sometimes I have a hard time, and I've addressed this. Like I'll have a hard time speaking with men because I have a stigma in my head that they're trying to take advantage of me for whatever the reason. And I've actually improved over the years in my communications with men because I recognize that this probably comes from someplace deep within me that I have to resolve, and I have for the most part. But I recognize that, I took the feedback from certain people around me that, okay, you always seem to get into these confrontations when you're dealing with somebody who's like a loud-mouthed guy. It's very hard for me to deal with. Not men. I'm talking about like a know-it-all. So I figured out different techniques and tactics to be able to talk to a person like this without getting upset and actually looking them at it. It's almost like comical to me now, and I could laugh at it. But before, it would just push my buttons, and I would find myself like just getting so enraged and like making stupid mistakes, therefore saying dumb things or storming out or whatever. So that's a weakness I have. I'm also great with ideas, but sometimes it's hard for me to, the organizational stuff, like the paying of the bills, the organizing like spreadsheets, calling parents and getting release forms signed. Like I just can't, it's very difficult for me. I've tried to do and I can do it, but it's something that I don't enjoy at all and I'm not good at and I don't have the mind for. So now I just get somebody else to do that if I can, Somebody else does that, and I just say hi to people and welcome everybody. I'm better at communicating. I'm better at meeting people one-on-one, talking to parents, meeting the kids, or when it comes to camps, or just meeting people in general. And I'm more of a social person than I am. I'd say I'm a creative person too, and I'm an ambitious person. But when it comes to little things like bills and spreadsheets and stuff, I have to get somebody else to do that. I just have to. So
now there's been a lot of research done about the gender gap specifically in organizations and around leadership and things, and some studies done around negotiations. Do you have any advice for women around negotiating salary or other things that they might be seeking in the workplace?
That's an interesting question because I have, being a businesswoman, I've noticed a very, very, very big difference in the way that women and men approach business in general. And, I'm not saying this is the rule, but from what I've experienced, women are more emotional and they wear their heart on their sleeve, and that could be taken advantage of. In the organizations that, I run or that work with me, they tend to become really emotionally involved, so emotionally involved that it starts to cloud their way of thinking. And men could detach themselves, but that's almost a bad thing too, in the other way, in which they're actually, not thinking about the people, they're just thinking about a profit. I'm not saying that's always true, and I'm not trying to stereotype. That's just what I've experienced as to be true. So I try to kind of find the middle ground. One thing I notice, and this is a fact, and especially being in Hollywood and seeing this firsthand, men will always brag and exaggerate, and women will downplay what they do. Like if a woman has many accomplishments, she'll be like, oh no, and she'll downplay it. Or if she does something good at work, she'll be like, oh, everybody helped me. Whereas the guy, everybody helped him, and he'll say, oh, I accomplished this and I accomplished that, and they're so easy to just spiel off their many or not so many, and they'll just exaggerate. So I realized that actually that's something I started. I'm starting to become more comfortable doing, because women feel ashamed almost to be successful, and they feel like they're bragging, and men actually don't care. They'll exaggerate. So I've started doing that, And I realized that it's effective, actually. You have to really be able to toot your own horn, I guess. And if you don't, like, who is going to, you know? And you can't get emotionally involved. And it's hard to do business with friends. It's just difficult. But women, you know, especially when you have women fundraising, it's hard because they become so attached to it that it's actually, they're so feeling so much for the kids and for the people that we're trying to help, say, that they just become clouded, their vision. And whereas guys are straight to the point of, like, I need $100,000. Like, you know, it's just so easy for them to ask for without being emotionally attached. And, like, this is the reasons why you should get, you know, I'm not saying that some women aren't like that, but it's just a lesson I learned to take from men, and I think men could really take from women, just to have a little bit more, be more in tune to the people that they're dealing with rather than just the business idea.
Can you give us an example of a time when maybe a negotiation process didn't go your way?
There's been many times when I feel a negotiation hasn't gone my way, and that's why I try to, you know, especially with entertainment, I always try to get now a manager or an agent to speak on my behalf. Because again, if the actual person hiring me gets me on the phone, they're like, how much do you want for it? Like, you feel like, I hate talking about money. I feel like I don't want to sell myself short, but I feel like I will. I feel like you're supposed to say a very large amount and then go down, and it's just not my tendency to do that. So I realized that I have to have somebody speak for me. There's been plenty of times where I've probably, like, done stuff even for free without even realizing that I could have gotten paid for it. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And then people are like, why wouldn't you have your manager speak to, like, why you, like, you know, it's just, it's happened time and time again. Because I'm generous with my time. You know, you have to learn to value your time. Your time is valuable. So that's happened to me so many times.
Tell us how you're building your own personal brand and some tips and advice that you can give us.
When building a brand, it's very important to really stay true to your essence. I think that a lot of people lose that because it's just so easy nowadays with social media and with the computer to actually start believing your own hype. Like, you actually start to believe you're this person that you've created on the internet. And I've seen that happen actually in entertainment and in Hollywood, where it's like you actually start to believe you're someone that you created, like I said. And it's better, I think, your brand become you than rather become your brand. I think that not only because it's not genuine, but also because it doesn't feel good. You know, there's been times when I've kind of went off the path a little bit as branding wise, and you feel like a phony. And it's not a good, rewarding feeling, and it's not inspiring. It's like you feel like a phony, a hypocrite. People will come up to you and they'll speak to you a certain way, and you're like, you know that it's BS, you know, and it just doesn't feel good, especially if I consider myself a genuine person, you know, and it's hard to, I think, become inspired when you're feeling fake. And I think that if you just really stay in tune with your essence and what it is that you love to do, and just do that, then your brand will just build around that. And I think for me, that's sort of what happened, because I love boxing, you know, I loved combat sports. I was so enraptured with it that event, like, you know, when I went to Biggest Loser, they already had my brand for me because it built itself. They're like, oh, you're the fighter that doesn't give up, and like, it's true. So even though I'm like, really, that kind of sounds like a little, you know, like I said, I'm very modest, but they had this whole, like, underdog theme, and that was already there. They didn't have to make that up, you know, so it sort of built itself. But then times when I've actually gone off that path, like, you know, I'm the trainer, like, hi, like with ponytail and a straight, like, you know what I mean, like this smiling talking head trainer, I just feel not sincere. If I'm trying to market something that I don't really believe in, it just feels so silly, and I'm just like, I hate it, you know what I mean? I really hate it. I hate being like a talking head trainer, I call it, like with a stripe on your pants. Like, I mean, there are people that are like that, and it's really genuine, but for me, it just feels so nauseating, and I actually go home like depressed. So I'd rather not do that, you know, and there's been many times when I've been sort of put in that position.
What is it that you do on a daily basis to help build your own personal brands?
Lately, well, to build my own personal brand, I know that social media is important, and it's something that I've really been trying to do lately, and trying to pay attention to who is successful in social media. But I do feel, again, like, I feel like social media is something that you're either good at or you're not. Like, I don't know, I think it has to be really organic. So I'm trying to find my niche in social media. I don't like posting my food up every day or what I'm eating or like selfies. I'm not a selfie person. I wish I was, but I'm not. But to build my brand lately, I've been doing more writing. I've been writing for websites and really trying to define my voice. It's really, I think, nice to write for blogs because it gives you an opportunity to really like define your voice, because sometimes you forget your voice. I think when you're tweeting out something silly like, eat some nuts today because it has like this many grams of protein, whatever, that's boring. You have to find a more interesting voice than that in your own voice. And I think that by writing and exploring in that sense lately, I've been really redefining and revisiting, my voice and incorporating that more into my brand and the way that I speak to the audience.
Now, you're in entertainment, you deal with a lot of people, all different walks of life and different environments. Tell us how emotional intelligence is important in a workplace setting.
In a workplace setting, emotional intelligence is really important. I think that unless you're like a 1 in a million genius like Steve Jobs or something like that, you have to be really in tune emotionally to the people you're working with and to the audience. If you're not, then you could risk just like wasting talent, I think. I've seen people do that, like genius people that are completely socially, they don't know how to act socially, or they have anger issues or whatever, completely lose out on opportunities. I think I might have done that. You know what I mean? It's so important to be in tune emotionally at work, I think, and not emotionally in an emotional sense, just to be aware intuitively of, of what's going on around you and of people's feelings or people's tendencies, or this is how you motivate this person. This person doesn't like this type of critical feedback, but this person responds well. Like, it's really important. I think training actually helps me a lot with that, because people all respond very differently to different types of feedback and criticism. There's guys that if you yell at them, like, they will start crying. I don't know. It's just crazy. It's like, I don't know if they've had issues in the past with like a female figure in their life, whatever, but they will get red in the face and furious if you raise your voice. Some guys thrive on it. Like, there's those guys that like were on the football team that like their coach was yelling like obscenities at them, and they actually like feed off of this, like to be insulted. It's like that's what motivates them, and you have to be so intuitive to figure out what motivates this person and what doesn't. Same way with kids, same way with women. So I think that at the workplace, it's just so important to understand different personalities, and people need different things when it comes to motivating.
So you're a health and wellness professional. Tell us what the connection is between mental wellness and physical activity.
Mentally, I'm the best, and spiritually when I'm exercising. It's just like night and day. Like, if I'm not exercising, I start to get crazy. And if I am, I feel calm. I feel my best ideas come to me when I'm running or when I'm exercising, or when I'm like, I get into the zone, and then all of a sudden my mind just opens up like a sponge, and all of a sudden all these ideas are flying in. Starting my camp, starting my charity, when I was jogging, certain business ideas that I've had, certain things I've written, they've all come to me when exercising, because it just opens your mind in this really, it's just hard to explain. And like, I'm sure people understand that love to exercise what I'm saying, when I think it's very connected, mental wellness and emotional wellness. When you're actually exercising and you're healthy, I think you're more creative.
And you found that because you've seen that you've come up with business ideas and things while
it's amazing. That makes me want to go running right now. It's like when I'm stumped on an answer to a question, I'll go running, and it's just like I don't even have to ask. Like, the answer just comes to me. It's like someone threw it in my head, and it's like, okay, and it's just so obvious. But when I don't know why, but then it's like if I didn't run, it's like you're like struggling with all these noises in your head, and then you just run. And sometimes it's happening when you're warming up. Sometimes when you just finally start sweating, you go fast, and all of a sudden it just comes to you. But every great idea I've had has probably come to me, 90% of them, when I was exercising, or more specifically jogging.
What advice do you have for people who are trying to incorporate fitness into busy schedules?
I would say, nowadays it's shown that short workouts are just as effective, as long workouts, short, intense workouts. So I would say trying to do that. Also, you're never too busy, I don't think, for like having fun and doing something you love. So if you figure out what it is that you really love to do, and an exercise or workout, for me it was boxing. So secondary to boxing came, and jogging, I like them. but the byproduct is I become more in shape and I'm fit. So I think that if you find something you love, especially something that you're learning from, like I love to learn dancing techniques like salsa, and it's a workout, it's an exercise. So if you find something like that you actually are learning at the same time as, and the byproduct is you're being fit, you'll never stop doing it, because as long as you're learning, it's interesting. So I'd say find something you really always wanted to do that's physical, and learn the techniques from maybe a coach, or just you could even go on YouTube, which is what I do a lot, and it'll make it more interesting for you. Mm-hmm. You know, even if you're jogging, like go on YouTube and learn the proper strides, like what type of, you know, shoes you should wear. Just learning things, it keeps you motivated.
Any tips for combating stress in the workplace?
My most successful workout schedule that was really conducive to my work schedule was when honestly, I was just working out 3 days a week, which is enough. But it was a good workout. I'd work out Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. And for some reason, it just felt, it was such a nice schedule. You know, I had those days to work out and I looked forward to them. And then it just made me more productive the rest of the week. So 3 days a week, if you're very busy and stressed out at work, is enough. You know, 1 day is better than nothing. But 3 days, it's like you're on this nice schedule, Mondays, Wednesdays, and you have 2 days off. It's so nice, Thursday and Friday, then Saturday. And, you know, Saturday's more leisurely, you can wake up later, you know, and just find something you really like to do, find people you like to do it with, and just make it part of your life, you know. Like 3 days a week, I think, is the perfect amount for somebody who has a stressful work schedule to work out.
Tell us about some women who inspire you and why.
When I think of women that inspire me, I don't have, you know, I could say that's typical, like Mother Teresa, who is inspirational and stuff like that, but it's more people I come into, I think, or have come into in my life. And I would say that most likely it was coaches and people that I was learning from, or teammates that I've had that I've actually looked up to because they were better than me. I think that it's really important to have people around you that are better than you at something, so you can learn from them. And I feel like it's the best way to forge a relationship, like a teacher-student relationship, sort of, even if it's just a friendship where one person's teaching someone a little bit more. It's like a really tight bond. I feel like the coaches I've had and the females on my team who have helped me, I'm very loyal to them. Probably like my family I'm more loyal to, but second to that is that type of relationship, because if someone teaches me something, I feel like very indebted to them. You know, or if because then they inspired me and they showed me something about myself I didn't realize. They helped me do something really great. It's like someone like that is like, it's an irreplaceable person. So I've had female boxers, like I have 2 really great female boxer friends that are probably be friends with till I'm like old and beyond, who, you know, they were a little older than me and they helped me a lot when I was boxing. They guided me the right way. And to me, that's like a bond that can't be broken because they helped me, you know, they taught me. And my trainers I've sought out through the years. You know, some of them female, some of them male. But again, it's like they can be the most flawed person as a person, but you'll always like find a way to like see the best in them because they helped you achieve your goal, I think. So like I had this one trainer, he was crazy. Everybody like thought he was crazy, but I always had something nice to say about him because he helped me, you know. I thought his craziness was kind of endearing, you know. So I think that I've been inspired a lot by women who have helped me, and also by now women that I train and help, because now I try to pass it on. It's like, it's hard. It's hard. Sometimes, you know, I'm not saying, you know, I'm training a girl who I'm almost twice the age of, and it's like sometimes you just like, you could find yourself kind of like getting depressed. I wish I was her age. She's so young. She has so much. And you have to just like push that away. And I remember people that helped me and try to help, you know, it's actually more rewarding rather than being like jealous of the person because they're so young. It's like you almost really, if you genuinely want to help them from a good place, it helps you combat your own stress dealing with like whatever you're dealing with, feeling like you're getting old or whatever. And then you see in them, by helping them, if they're really a genuine worker, you'll see yourself in them again. You'll remember, oh my God, I was like that. I used to work hard like that. Or I remember when I was, you know, when I never gave up like that. And you'll see that in them, and then you'll get inspired from them. You know, it's pretty interesting. You know, you'll see how excited they are and how motivated they are, and you're like, I used to be like that, and I am like that. You know, so you can be inspired by people you teach.
Okay, well, Cara, this was great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll see you next time on Starter TV.